Hi, everyone, and welcome to the webinar today on smart retail technology for customer flow, retail insights, and customer success planning. Today's session is going to be an interactive session between the participants. I would like to invite you to please post any questions that you have, since we will be having a questions and answers section at the end. In this webinar today, and in this session today, you will learn about the latest smart retail and customer flow technology. We will show you how other technology works, the business application of smart retail technology, which will then be followed by a Q&A section at the end. That's the agenda for this morning. Introducing the panel for today, I would like to start with myself and Catalyst. I'm Johan van Niekerk, and I'm the Managing Director of Catalyst. And I've been in the smart workspace technology industry, featuring solutions and working and implementing solutions like this for 10 years. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And Catalyst is a South African business based in Johannesburg, founded on the principle of driving business forward with smart technology. Our goal is to help create intelligent spaces to automate and simplify operations and to improve the user journey, as well as your real estate and your business return on investment. Our approach is that of long-term partnerships through collaborative planning, design, and support, with a focus on innovative workspace technologies that you will see today. Next, I would like to introduce to you Paul Uhl. Paul is a director in business development at Zovis. Zovis is the global leading platform for people counting, which you will get to know today, who specializes across many industries. Featured today will be the smart retail sensor technology, hardware and software, which I think you will really find great to see. Paul will be covering important use cases, retail questions, and insights from a global perspective. And secondly, I would like to introduce to you Roger Blaine. Roger is Managing Director at IntelliPower, and Roger has been designing, building, and supplying innovative solutions in retail analytics and navigation internationally for many years. He's also an expert in the field of data and analytics. So Roger will be covering the business application of the customer flow technology. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Paul and Roger for a quick greeting, starting with you, Paul.
Thank you, Johan, for this warm introduction. We are really happy to be part of this webinar as the technology partner of Catalyst and IntelliPower. So Zovis has its roots in the airport industry. Back in 2008, the company was founded and is measuring since then people flow technology at the airport. Some years after that, more and more other industries, like for example, the retail industry or the smart building sector, reached out to us saying, hey, your technology provides also a great value in our areas, and why not using these sensors there as well? So that's what we did. And since multiple years, we are now active in other sectors, including retail, smart building and transportation, but also, for example, amusement parks or other public places or casinos. And that leads to the fact that we now have more than 200,000 sensors installed worldwide and more than 140 employees. Important to mention, innovation is really important at Zovis. So more than 40 of these employees are actually working in the R&D department. So innovation is key, and innovation is happening in-house. We don't only have the headquarters in Switzerland, but also other offices in Boston, in the USA, and in China, in Shanghai. And over to Roger.
Thanks, Paul. Roger, you're on mute.
Thanks.
There we go.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Johan. Great to be presenting with Zovis and Catalyst today. IntelliPower has been involved in the retail tech analytics space for a number of years. We have both global and local experience. We developed a sensor agnostic analytic platform in 2016, which is primarily designed to unlock the business insights from the sensors and easily allow you to see what's happening in your business. We have a presence in India and Australia, so we are a little bit of a global team. We've been a Zovis integration partner since 2018. Our key staff have been trained in the Ronnie Max Behavior Analytics Academy, I think we took the time during COVID to get that done. And we're really pleased to be in partnership with Catalyst to take these great solutions to market. What we essentially do is a lot of mall and retail analytics, shopping mall mobile applications, and campus navigation solutions. Thanks, Johan.
Great. Thanks, Roger. I think it's always nice to see the audience and to understand the audience. And so I'm going to launch a quick poll, which should be on your screen now, which is, what is your area of focus? So what area do you focus on in your space? And then I'll keep quiet, give you some time to answer. You can see the answers coming in and the bars are building. There we go. It looks like we've reached the end of that one. Thank you very much for that. It's always interesting, and it's quite cool to see. We've got a 50-50 representation, really. So right down the middle of operations, sales, customer experience and management, and also facilities management, space planning, store design, and projects. So that's really great to see. So thanks very much for that. And yeah, it's always great to understand the audience. And finishing the introduction section, I would like to show you how we all fit together. Backed by Zovis as the global leading platform of people counting, and IntelliPower as the business and analytics intelligence specialist. Catalyst brings it all together as your retail distributor and supplier within South Africa, with the aim of driving your business forward using these latest smart technologies, like the retail technology you'll see today. So we are very proud to bring you and to host you this webinar. And so I look forward to going through this with you today. Looking at retail in South Africa, there's no doubt that retail is changing and changing fast. Even internationally, we can all agree. From the increase of online and hybrid shopping to adapting to a new in-store shopping experience and design, having to redesign or having to design processes to enforce social distancing, and following ever-changing regulations as well. Two things remain as important as ever: customer experience and cost-effective stores and operations. So achieving return on investment. To achieve a great customer experience, as well as the increased sales and returns, it is more important than ever to analyze and measure the effectiveness of your retail strategy. It's important to ask what's happening within your stores. Where do your customers go to within your retail spaces? What draws your customers to you? And where can you improve and even gain quick wins to improve your sales as well as your customer experience? Smart retail technology helps you to refine your retail strategy and to achieve this. Here are some burning questions which exist in retail today that we aim to address during the webinar. So pay attention to these questions, guys. How can smart retail technology help you to improve sales and sales conversion rates? How can smart retail technology help you improve store operations and service planning? And how can smart retail technology help you to optimize? I actually forgot to toggle those questions. That's the second one. Help you to improve store operations and service planning. The last one is, how can smart retail technology help you to optimize your store layouts and improve the customer experience and the sales, which I think is really what it's all about. This takes us to the next quick poll. What do you think? So let me just launch this poll quickly. What do you think does retail use today to measure their customer and retail trends? What do you think retail uses today? If you don't know, take a guess. If you know, I'll appreciate your answers. And again, I can see the bars moving. It's always fascinating to see how it almost looks like a race. And there we go. So we have, looks like we've reached the end. It's slowed down and giving a few more seconds and ending the poll there. This is quite interesting. I did expect this, to be honest. So I can see Let me actually share this result for you on screen. You can see that most people, can you guys see the results? Just want to confirm. Okay, so most people say point of sale, standard, and then point of sale, then manual processes, which I think is the bigger case than we think. Standard or basic people counting, also a very big case than we think. And of course, in some cases, we're uncertain about that. So, and we will cover the point of sale point as well today, in context of this technology. So just stay with us for that. Thanks very much for that feedback. And with that, I'd like to hand over to you, Paul, to cover the smart retail technology, the hardware and the software. And yeah, over to you. Take it away.
Thank you, Johan. So you raised a bunch of interesting questions retailers has to answer today. And to find the answer to these questions, you basically need two components. The first component is the actual hardware. The hardware or the sensor that is capturing and analyzing everything that is happening underneath or in the store. The other component is the software. So the part who takes the raw data of the sensor, process the data and translate them into actionable insights. So let's start with the first component, the sensor. So we developed a 3D optical sensor. And this sensor comes along with two important aspects. The first aspect are the two lenses. These two lenses create a 3D image of people or objects working underneath the sensor. The second very important component is the AI algorithm on each sensor. So with these two components, with the two lenses that create a 3D shape and the algorithm on each sensor, which are based on AI, we have a super high accuracy of up to 99%. And because no picture or video stream ever leaves the sensor, and the algorithm on each sensor is processing everything live, we can talk about edge computing. And again, then edge computing leads to the fact that we're GDPR by design, or we are GDPR compliant. GDPR refers to the European Data Privacy Standard and is one of the highest and strictest in the world. Two other components we're very proud of. First of all, the multi-sensor capabilities. So it's not only possible to cover, for example, the entrance with our sensors, but it's easily possible to cover the whole store by stitching or connecting multiple sensors with each other. The other thing we are very proud of is the mean time between failure. So our sensor is tested for a mean time between failure of 25 years. So on the next slide, you see the Xovis product portfolio. So we don't only offer indoor and outdoor sensor, but we also offer cloud products and service as a software, the so-called flow software, which is then processing all the raw data from the sensor into actionable insights. So how does the technology work? So each sensor needs to be mounted at the ceiling and is looking down from the top. The two lenses, as I said earlier, create a 3D shape of people and objects working underneath the sensor. So what we see in bubble 2 is actually 6 people, and the red or sometimes yellow part of it are the heads, and then it goes green at the shoulders. And the algorithms deployed on each device is processing these data and translates them into people. So by that, we're obviously able to track people movement and obviously also count people with a super high accuracy. Important to mention, at the end, only the metadata are leaving the sensor. So no picture, no video ever leaves the sensor, and this guarantees data privacy. So on the next slide, we see that we can do actually more than people counting. So we can obviously count people, but we can also say whether the person underneath the sensor is male or female. We can also say where is the customer looking at by measuring where the head is moving to. And during COVID-19, we also developed a face mask detection algorithm. So we can check whether each person is actually wearing a face mask. Important in the area of retail is also the staff exclusion. So particularly in retail, you're not really interested in knowing where the customer went through, how often the customer entered and exited the store. You only want to know at the end of the day how many potential paying customers you had. And that's why we developed a staff detection It's a name tag with a special pattern that the staff has to wear on the chest. And with that, we can exclude staff from getting counted. So let's see how this works in action. So what we see here are 4 elements. We have 3 green counting lines, and we have 1 zone. You can see these 4 elements on the right-hand side. And what we also see is a person. We see this as a person because we see a bubble. And we also know that this person is female because of the little gender symbol in the middle of the bubble, and also because of the color of the bubble. We see that she's wearing a face mask, and we actually see the height of the person, 157 centimeters. And this, again, allows us to differentiate between adults and children. What we also see is the view direction. So this is the part on the right-hand side of the bubble. So now before we press play, I want you to focus on 2 things. One is the entrance from the office. The counter is currently at 110 on the right-hand side, and the coffee waiting area. There's already 1 person, the person we just discussed, in this zone. So now if we press play, we see what's happening live on the sensor. We are at 110, the person crossed the line, we are at 111, and 2 people are in the zone. We also see here the staff exclusion live. And we see more and more people coming into the zone. So by now we have 3 people in the zone. Important to mention here is that this is just the administration view. So this is what's happening live on the sensor. However, these pictures or videos will never leave the sensor and will be deleted right after they process the images and translated them into raw data.
That's amazing to see, Paul. So I can actually see how accurate the gaze direction or the direction of view is, following exactly the person's face where they're looking to, and how it picks up, mask or no mask, and genders and even the height. It's quite amazing to see it in action.
Indeed, and it can be even more impressive. So on the next slide, you see multiple sensors doing a great job. So this view is just 1 sensor. However, what you can do is you can connect multiple sensors to each other to basically cover the full shop and the full customer journey. So all the little bubbles here on the right side are basically people working around. So obviously, because we cover the whole store, we can see the whole customer journey. We can see where a person goes after entering a store. We can see how much time they spend, for example, at the bar. And we can create heat maps and get a lot of relevant information, like, for example, average dwell time of a person, etc.
That's amazing. It's amazing to see. You can see how anonymous the data is. So it doesn't identify people, but of course those color dots indicating where people are moving. You can see where people are sitting still or standing still. Clearly see where people are moving. And then, of course, this is what goes to the data, right? So when it goes to the data, it sends that metadata, ones and zeros, if I can call it that, to translate that to the heat maps and all the analytics that we're going to see later.
Great. So on the next slide, basically this was, so back to the question of Johan. So as I said, we have 2 components. The first component is the sensor, the hardware that is measuring everything, is generating this data. And then the second component is the software that translates all the raw data of the sensor into actionable insights. And I will now talk about Flow, and Roger from IntelliPower will later talk about their solution they developed. So back to the questions. So if you have, for example, multiple retail chains, Johan, please switch to the next slide. Go. So if you have multiple stores, so you're a chain, you always want to compare and benchmark the stores with each other. And what you most likely have, and we saw this in the poll already, you have POS data. However, the POS data are not the full truth. So what you actually also need to do is you need to connect the number of visitors and the POS data together to see the sales conversion rate. So in bubble number 1, we see 2 stores, 1 store in Berlin and 1 store in Paris. And we see how many visitors we had during this time period. And what we see clearly is that Berlin has less visitors than, for example, Paris. What we do now is we connect the POS system of each individual store. And by that, we know how many transactions each store did today, which then, easy math, leads us to the sales conversion rate. So here we have a different picture. And what we see is that Berlin actually has a higher sales conversion rate than Paris. And obviously, these insights itself already shows that you need to implement new measures and measure their success over time to improve the sales performance. So let's take a deeper look, and let's start with the so-called case Paris. So case Paris, just that you remember it again, we had many visitors. However, the sales conversion rate was rather low. So what we need to do now is we need to understand the visitors throughout the day, throughout the week, and see whether we have enough and the right stuff in place during these days. So if we look at, for example, the bubble number 1, we see that the stores are not very busy in the morning hours. Then more and more visitors come in and enjoy your shop. And at the end of the day, they're declining again. So what you need to make sure is that you have more stuff in place during the busy hours. And again, you can do this. You can increase the staff, and you can see whether this actually leads to an increased conversion rate, and you can improve your conversion rate. Now, if you have enough stuff in place and you provide the right customer service to the customers, you might not only increase your sales conversion rate and have more sales in the first place, but you might also increase your average transaction value. So people are not only buying more, but they are also not buying in the first instance, but they are also buying more and increase the basket.
That's great. So this is an example of where you use that conversion rate or the point of sale data, and use that to actually get to the sales values.
Exactly. So that was the first analysis. So now let's take a look at the case Berlin. Remember, in Berlin, we had fewer visitors and a decent conversion rate. So obviously here we have a different problem than in Paris. So we need to get more people into our stores. And how can we do this? Obviously with marketing campaigns. But it's not easy to say which marketing campaign leads to the best success and has the greatest impact. So what you can do is you can launch different marketing campaigns during different days or during different weeks, and you can see whether this actually has an impact on the visitor data, as you can see in bubble number 1. And you can not only understand whether you have more visitors, but you can also understand whether your marketing campaign attracts the targeted audience. So for example, if you say you have not enough men in your shop, you need to launch a marketing campaign which addresses men, obviously. And you can see with Flow and in our dashboard, with the help of our sensors, which people got attracted by the campaign and are actually visiting your stores. And at the end, hopefully, if you have the right marketing campaign, you increase your total sales, but also you increase the efficiency because you can stop investing into marketing campaigns that don't have any impact.
And I think that's very, very relevant today because your marketing campaigns are so varied. You've got YouTube marketing campaigns and other digital marketing campaigns, and you can launch each one individually and then check the impact of those marketing campaigns against your target buyer. And so that's fascinating. So
exactly.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is in the online world, in the online stores, you have all these data already. So you know how many people and the demographics of the people who clicked on the banners or on the marketing, but you don't have any insights in the offline world. So now this was basically theory, and I also would like to quickly show you how this looks live and real. So the Service Flow software. Here we go. So this is the dashboard. And basically we have the same KPIs here as I showed in the presentation. So we have the number of visitors. And if I click on the KPI, I see this during the different days. We have the gender also again during the different days. I can also switch to a different month or to the week or actually also to a day. And here, these are the POS data. So these are the data we get from the POS system. And by that, we can bring together the number of transactions here with the number of visitors and calculate the sales conversion rate. And again, you can compare the sales conversion rate of the different days. But what you can also do is you can compare the sales conversion rate of your stores with each other. So here, for example, we see Berlin as a worse conversion rate than Paris.
And that's quite amazing to see. And that conversion rate, is it right? Is it fair to say the conversion rate, that 16%, is the point of sale data, actually? So what's amazing is if you only, and this was my point earlier when I started speaking earlier, is if you only look at point of sale data, then you effectively look at the 16%, which means 84%. So you don't have a full picture of your number of visitors coming through the store, and let's say the potential increase of sales that you can achieve by adjusting your store internally, the design or the product placement or the staff the customer service staff and all those. So this helps you. I can see how this can help you to increase your sales probably by at least 10% or 15%.
Exactly, that's what we saw in the practical world indeed, yeah. Yeah, so you need to connect the number of visitors and the POS system, and this is basically what Flow does. So with Flow, you install a sensor at the entrance, and at the exit, you connect the POS system, and you get all these great insights. But now I want to hand over to Roger, because there are also very important aspects inside the store. So we need to analyze things like dwell time, about where people spend most of their time. And this will be done by our integration partner, IntelliPower. Thanks, Roger. Over to you.
Thanks, Paul. I'm just sharing my screen here.
Thanks, Paul, for that. That's very, very informative and valuable to see.
Great. Okay, so the world of retail analytics is wonderful, and Zobus is one of the very best sensors available today to collect this type of data. I'm going to showcase a couple of interesting things that we can do with the data. And as Johan was alluding, what happens between traffic entering your store and conversion to point of sale is the big question mark. So at point of sale, you know exactly what happened from an ATV point of view, but you don't know about the missed opportunity and how and what is causing the missed opportunity. So being able to visualize the flows of customers on your shop floor using different methods, which I'll take you through. What you can do is use A/B testing techniques, and you can ultimately do in-store optimization, or we sometimes call ISO. So essentially, you would make some change to a store, and you then measure the difference between the stores. And then if the differences are positive, you would then roll it out to multiple stores. So the first item I'm showcasing here is the heat map, which basically shows, and we can show the heat map as visit concentrations or dwell concentrations, or even conversion concentrations. But it essentially shows you high concentration areas, which are either areas of high interest by shoppers, or they could potentially be congestion points. And obviously a congestion point would be bad, and you'd want to remove it. But more importantly, it shows colder areas in the store where potential categories of product are not being visited by customers. And the problem is if a shopper doesn't see the product, they're never going to buy the product. So ultimately, you're wanting to balance the flows around your store, and potentially you'd want to move a high interest category to a colder area to draw the traffic through the other categories, and therefore bump up sales in those areas. I'm just going to toggle to the second slide, where we can actually see the customer flows in great detail. So, sorry, I'm just moving something out the way. Okay, so essentially, as a customer comes into the store, we start tracking them, and as they spend time at different categories, we can actually measure the analytics around the category area. We can see what other categories they went to. We can see that they possibly went past some end caps and showed some interest, and ultimately they went to checkout. So we can determine average duration of the journey. We can determine category conversion. In other words, how many people visited this particular category, which might have been fruit and veg, and it actually ended up in their shopping basket at point of sale. So besides doing the conversion of the entire store, we can actually do let's call it the micro conversion of the micro funnels in the store.
That's amazing. It's almost like putting on virtual reality glasses. The way that's the way I think. I always revert to more technology. It's almost like putting on virtual reality glasses, and you can actually see historically what's happened in your store. You know, whether it's a big or a small store, you can see where people never go to, where they dwell, where they spend their time. You know what, and that must be super valuable ultimately to try and to have initiatives to increase your sales or your conversion rates.
Absolutely, and a store is an expensive asset, and one needs tools to be able to optimize the asset. Bubble 3 shows another type of visualization we do, where we can actually just highlight the actual category areas, and then we can overlay onto that a heat color, which you can switch to be either dwell or visits or conversion. So you can immediately see how your categories are performing. We can even drill into subcategories of categories. So if there's an entire fruit and veg area, we can then drill into the individual elements of that area as well and just give you another view down. Bubble number 4 is a Sankey diagram. So what we can do is we can show the relative flows of what happened to shoppers as they came through. 100% of people came through the front door, what percentage went to which category, which following category, which kind of gives you an idea of where the interest is, who's doing destination shopping, and which categories are drawing customers, and follow-on areas. So it gives you more insights into being able to optimize your store layouts. All right, the next area is checkout. Now, traditionally, the buying decision of a product happens the moment a shopper puts the product into the shopping cart. So the function of checkout is purely process procedure. You know, it's just ringing up and exchanging the money. But it's a very critical process. Now, if there's too much friction at checkout, it's taking people long, they're frustrated. They're potentially not going to come back again. They're going to tell their friends, listen, don't go shop there. You know, it just takes ages. So that is something we can monitor, and we can monitor the service level at checkout. And the important thing about checkout is that it's very much a real-time thing. So we can alert your supervisory and management staff in real time that you need to open more checkout lanes. And of course, the opposite is true. If you've got idle checkout, you want to close that down. The other thing that happens at checkout is if people get frustrated, they potentially abandon their baskets and their carts. So if you've got something like a 2% abandonment rate at checkout times your average transaction value times your footfall and your conversion, it's quite a lot of money just walking out the door and not being rung up at tolls.
I'm going to put my hand up there and say I'm guilty. I'm one of those shoppers that when I walk through the aisles and I get to the pay points, and sometimes there's too much congestion and sometimes the queues are too long. Of course, I look at what I still have to do today, and I've many times put the stuff down or left the trolley, I guess, and just left. So I guess I'm guilty of some of that abandonment or abandoning statistics.
Thanks, Johan. Yeah. So typically, if you knew abandonment was happening, you would open up more tolls and try and ease the congestion, or you'd send staff in to do a bit of queue busting or something. The other thing we can do with the Zovis solution is social distancing. So we can monitor the distance between shoppers, and we can give various alerts for them to distance appropriately. We can also look at anti-bypass and passback events, especially if you're considering doing automated type checkouts. I mean, the last thing you want is somebody just walking past the checkout and out the doors, because they're supposed to ring up their own goods and pay. So we can detect those type of instances and block the exits. And then the other thing around checkout is all your impulse buy merchandise and using some of the Zova's features like the head gaze direction. We can give you valuable insights in terms of the effectiveness of that merchandise, and is it catching people's attention? Are they seeing it, and are they actually purchasing it? And then we have many ways that we can visualize this sort of data. The third thing I want to talk about is staff effectiveness, or sometimes we say sales associate effectiveness. As we understand the conversion funnel in retail, the role of the staff is hugely important in promoting conversion. And, you know, marketing drives people into the store, but if there aren't enough staff to handle the load, then the conversions drop, and you've effectively just wasted a whole bunch of marketing, which is not much good. So what Zova's have is this unique feature where the staff get equipped with a barcoded badge, and the cameras pick up this badge, and they actually then tag the objects on the floor as being staff. So those are obviously excluded from counts and things like that. And then what we additionally do is we monitor the shopper's association to the staff. So we can tell things like, what is the average time from a customer entering the store to first staff interaction? How many interactions between staff and customers happen on average? What is the average duration of interactions? We can also tell the ratio of staff to customers on the floor.
Well, I'd be very interested. Sorry, I always interrupt you. I'd be very interested to see a Berlin and France case study that Paul mentioned earlier, linked to this sales interaction. Because if you have more visitors in a store, my logic says your sales conversion should be higher. And it could be, if you look at this factor, that where you have the relevance of customer service and people engaging with customers, you know, you can see that's where a problem could potentially exist.
Thanks, Jan. Yes, very often you can drive more feet into the store, and then suddenly your conversion drops, and then you're now trying to wonder what happened. So this is useful information to management, to HR, to potentially drive interventions to upskill the staff, and then using A/B type methods, you can then compare after the intervention and did it work. And you can also compare stores, you know, which stores have got better staffing than others, and drill into that type of scenario. Okay, this is a really exciting field, and talk to you a little bit about eye tracking. Now, the Zova sensor doesn't track eyes exactly. We track head direction, but by implication, we can estimate that the eyes are looking more or less where the head is turning. What we know is that we all have a primordial lizard brain in our heads, and this lizard brain picks up on things in the first 2 to 3 seconds as we enter or we walk past something. And we subconsciously react to color, shape, shininess, brightness before our cognitive brain kicks in, before we can even read anything. So what I've got here is, and this has been traditionally used, well, in retail. To use this type of technology, you'd have to send in mystery shoppers wearing special glasses, or you'd have to equip shelves and displays with special eye tracking technology, which is very expensive. So Zova's does present quite a unique solution. So typically here is a window, and in the one embodiment of the window, people are just drawn to the mannequin heads, which really didn't help because they really weren't seeing the clothing. And then after the window was redone, the focus was drawn to the product, which is kind of what you're trying to see. So that's just kind of giving you some background. The second is if shoppers are moving past shelves and they're not seeing the product, they're not going to pick the product up and place it in the shopping cart. So this really goes to your merchandising and how the shelves are laid out and things like that. So those are other types of things. But what we can do with the Zovis type cameras is, as people, let's say, enter the shop, we can see predominantly where their head or gaze direction is. And a typical example might be you might have a cosmetic counter here with a mirror, and as people enter the door, they pick up their reflection in the mirror. So the lizard brain then goes to looking at the mirror the whole time. And you might have a nice product display over here, which you spent a lot of money on, and people quite aren't really seeing it, or they're seeing it too late. And by understanding that, you can optimize the layout of the shop and the promotions. And then, of course, we don't only do this for the shop, we can do it for each category, you know, so as people come into category, or as they come into checkout, where is the lizard brain focus?
But you can gauge your product placement. You can plan your product placement, the effectiveness of those products, where they're placed. If you have a high revenue or a high margin solution, you can place it in a specific space that draws the most visual, it's called instinctive or impulsive gaze, and give it maximum exposure.
Absolutely, Jan. So this is an invaluable tool for merchandisers, and then using A/B testing, you can see that by restocking the shelves differently, whether there was actually improvement in conversion in that category or not. Now, the next thing I want to showcase is really who benefits from these KPIs. Now, in any organization, you've got various stakeholders, from executive management through to various operational types, even potentially external stakeholders like brands, internal ones like HR, merchandising, etc. And all these folks need to consume analytics differently. Now, traditionally, we give a very highly featured dashboard, which you can go and drill into and things like that. But quite frankly, if you're a busy manager on the shop floor, you're not sitting behind your computer looking at dashboards. That's the last thing on your mind. So what we can do is we give people a mobile app in your pocket. So certainly for the more real-time analytics like queue checkout or even store occupancy, where you can influence that literally in 5 minutes. We can send alerts to the phones and just allow the real operational management staff just to pull something out their pocket and see what's happening and take immediate action. We also, for certain management types, we also make PDF mail reports, which can arrive in your inbox every Monday, and then you can use that for maybe your staff planning for the week and things like that. Potentially more the C-suite type executives and regional managers and things, that they could probably deal with the dashboards and do some basic queries. And then inevitably, you've got people that are doing data mining, and they need to use proper data mining tools, get into the database and look for your own trends in the data. So we have something that suits everybody in terms of using and consuming the analytics.
And I've just thought of a new use case also, which is also, or another use case, which is monitoring staff entrances and exits, what's happening there. And also in terms of, people counting, but also, what's happening there, people aren't always supposed to go in and out all the entrances the whole time, or maybe 50% of the staff goes outside, you don't know why, things like that. And I can imagine that other exits and other entrances can be valuable to monitor those type of spaces as well.
Exactly. So we've got quite an extensive ROI playbook for retail. We firmly believe that analytics are not there for the sake of pretty pictures and eye candy. They have to serve a business use, and they need to provide you a return on investment. So we can certainly help guide in that respect. Thanks, Jan.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Roger. That was great. It was great to see and very informative. So thanks very much for that section. We are coming to an end here, to a close. As I do that, let me just launch a last poll. Just confirm you can see the poll, please. And then please make a selection there. Retail customers and people flow insights is more important than ever. Do you agree with that? It's more important than ever. I can definitely see a need for it. And I'll give everyone some time to answer. again, without this, you only look at point of sale data, which is only transactional. You don't see your human behavior, understand your human behavior and things. So that's great. I think I've given enough time there. If I look at the polls, might as well share it. So that's a 50% split down the middle. So that's great to see. You know, it really comes down to understanding the visualization or the visibility and the insights, the importance of insights. Having the analytics, like Roger said, not just to have pretty pictures, but having the insights, the analytics, the automated triggers and notifications and things like that to help you to manage even day to day or minute by minute, or just to manage your in-store operations, your service staff, how many service staff are needed, and so forth. So that is great. And I would like to see, are we back at my slides? Can you see the Q&A slide?
Yes, we can.
Great. So let's just have a look if there's any questions that's been asked. There's a Q&A tab at the bottom or at the top. It depends how your view is. There is a Q&A. So I've got a question here. How does the sensor detect the gender of a person? I think that's for you, Paul.
Yes, happy to take that over. So what we saw in the video earlier during the webinar is the view of the sensor, the view of a single sensor. And the view is basically like that. And if a person is working in, the sensor has a couple of seconds to see the actual face of the person. And the AI algorithms on the sensor are capable to use this very few seconds to decide whether this is male or female. So how does this work? So what we did is we labeled millions of pictures, saying like a person, labeled them saying, okay, on this picture, we see a male, on this picture, we see a female. And at the end, we trained an algorithm with all these labeled pictures and deployed this algorithm on the sensor itself. And now the sensor is actually capable to do all this processing by itself.
Great. And I think I looked at the next one here. How many sensors can I install in one retail space? So for either of you. Paul,
Happy to take it over as well. I think that's also a hardware question. So you can install up to 9 sensors in a retail store without any additional hardware. So what is happening is that 8 sensors gather all the data and sends them out to the 9th sensor. The 9th sensor is then processing the data and sends them out to the server endpoint in an accumulated way. So now if you want to connect more than 9 sensors, you would actually need an additional hardware, the spider unit, the Xovis spider unit. And what this unit does is it processes all the data of up to 200 sensors and aggregates them and sends them again out in an accumulated way. So to answer the question, it's possible to connect up to 200 sensors.
Well, okay,
Paul,
that's
Paul. Sorry, Paul. I would even go further and say that's probably 200 sensors per floor. You know, if you've got a multi-level setup, you could probably go further.
Indeed, yeah. I mean, you just need one spider unit in the network, and then you can say, okay, we track each floor, full coverage. Let's say 50 sensors on 4 floors, up to 200 sensors, and easily possible, yeah.
And another question is, do the sensors work on batteries, Wi-Fi, or PoE?
Actually, the sensor works on PoE. So to guarantee a high accuracy, we want we need a stable internet connection. So the sensor is powered over PoE, so it gets power as well as internet over the PoE cabling.
Yeah, that's always my favorite as well. And PoE is power over Ethernet, so it's the power over the network cable as well. This is, I'm not seeing a question here, but just a quick question about height. How does the height of the ceiling? So if I've got a store with 5 meter or very high ceiling, how does that impact? Is that a limitation then?
Generally, that's not a limitation. We work actually to an installation height of up to 20 meters. And generally speaking, the higher the installation height, the more coverage each individual sensor has, the less sensors you need if you want to cover the whole area.
20 meters, that's maybe for a wall climbing recreational place. So
actually.
and lastly, last question is, can the reports and then the analytics, I think this may be for Roger, can it be set up? I think you did answer, to automate reports and notifications to, I guess it's to schedule and automate them.
Absolutely, Johan. I think in our busy lives these days, we just want to consume data. So we push those reports out on a schedule to different role players.
Right. That's all I can see for now. Those are all the questions that I can see. I think with that, we'll probably bring the webinar to a close, if that's fine with you, Paul and Roger as well. And I really want to thank you guys for joining. It was really informative, mind-blowing, actually, to say the least, to see what you can do as opposed to just having a point of sale data, to understand what's happening in your store, where your customers go to, and what their trends are and what you can do. I think with this technology, it really looks like when you know what's happening, you can increase your sales conversion through some quick wins, and just by doing, I want to say, hopefully applying some easy measures to increase your sales by maybe 10 or 15% or even more in some cases, to get those visitors to buy. So that's really great. Thanks for your feedback and for your participation today. This webinar will be available on download or afterwards as well. So please keep an eye out for that. Please reach out to us or to me if you have any questions or queries. I'd love to engage with anyone who wants to have a one-on-one separate session. I'll be very happy to do that. So please, don't hesitate to do that. So thanks, Roger. Thanks, Paul, for joining, and have a great day. Everyone, have a great day, and thank you for joining.
Thanks, Johan. Thanks, Roger, and thanks to all the participants. Have a good day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.